Right, and we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sport Thursday night, which means the fan forum is back. Which, if you didn't know, actually doubles up as our podcast, which means that if you miss anything tonight, you can stream this on your favorite platforms, your Spotify's, your Apple Music's, your whatever you use to listen to your best podcast. Throw it on in the car on the way to work in the morning and listen to us chat a little bit of rugby and a lot of shit. Because that is what we're here to do. Gentlemen, as you can tell, as everybody can see, I am joined by Wes, Reza, and Rudy. How are we all, lads?
Well, I'm getting on. I'm recovering slowly from that New Zealand loss.
Yeah, listen, we've got it's tough times, dude.
But we're out here, we're moving, and Rudy's already in full force.
Yeah, Rudy's on the Bears. How's the Eastern Cape treating you, Rudy?
All good, my brother. Gearing up for a big win on Saturday.
Oh, there we go. Well, I've just come from the Argentina press conference. They're pretty confident. Shaker says that they believe they can win, and we're going to every game believing they win, and that's the whole point of that's a big focus of the team, is their sort of confidence and their belief and stuff. So lots to talk about. We have had the team named from Argentina and a couple of interesting selections. We obviously saw the box side earlier this week. Also a couple of very interesting selections and plenty for us to talk about. And the Brazil Cup this weekend. Very interesting game because, especially it being in Australia, it's like the one time Australia genuinely seems to like pull themselves towards themselves and kind of play like half decent rugby. However, Eddie Jones has decided to put out the nursery school at 9 and 10. So it's an interesting call being made by a lot of coaches this week. But over the next hour, basically, we're talking about those two games. There's also a little bit of other rugby. Scotland's taking on Italy this weekend, so a lot of World Cup preparations are sort of starting. If you missed any sort of transfer news, go and check back on the channel. A couple of interesting news about Jordan Hendrickson, about Mari Liebach, for example. There's some news about Carlos Kassan going to the Stormers. So just make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you're always up to date with everything that's happening around the rugby world. But right, this weekend, Emirates Airline Park. I'm going to throw it to the fellow Lions fan, Reza, who I have no doubt has been to the park many a time. Fortress Airless. Marvin Ori even went as far as to say it's basically the Springbok home stadium. The last game on home soil for the Boks. Nothing short of a big win is acceptable. Is that not right?
Yeah, I'm a little upset that comment had to come from Marvin, when he ditched Ellis Park. So,
Yeah.
But it needed to have been absolutely a huge game. I mean, as you said, it's the last one on home soil for the boys. It's a chance to the last chance they'll have to be in their comfort zone and to make a really positive impact. I have no doubt they'll do it. I'm sure we'll get into the merits of it in a little bit, but it is a fortress. I mean, when it's Bok games, it is packed out. It is amazing. It is honestly, the atmosphere is just incredible. It is just a different place. The stadium itself is not so great, but for some reason, it seems to bring out just the best in us and in the Boks themselves.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, interesting. I mean, look, not sold out yet, so it's a bit frustrating from that point of view. Hopefully, a couple of the fans will start to buy some tickets, and we can make sure it's a bit of a sellout. Rude, you were saying before that you're still hurting quite a bit from the New Zealand game. So I suppose psychologically, it's about going out and getting the result this weekend. But how important is the performance in terms of showing that New Zealand was just a bad day at the office and that we need to respond quite well, and just I kind of feel like we always have to sort of reprove everybody that we actually still a quality side and we can deliver the goods.
Yeah, I think for the South African game against the All Blacks, I was listening to Jacques Nienaber, one of his press conferences, and he was talking about maybe the players in New Zealand that started that game were a little bit cold, a little bit undercooked. I think for this game against Argentina, it would be important for the players to really cook and fire. And looking at the combinations, whether it be the back row that looks, more balanced than the All Black game, they need to come out firing, get the result, and really put a marker on the fact that we're not just here to be in the top 4, perhaps, of winning the World Cup, that we're actually very serious, and our name is the first name they think of when that final comes around.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people, I think a lot of the South African public, it's interesting, and Wes, maybe we'll talk to you about the sort of psychological sort of part of it. South African fans love to think that we are always the underdogs. They love to think that we always perform well when we're the underdogs. We like to have the narrative. We like to have they don't believe we can do it. Jacques Nielba is throwing out the do it for the load shedding. Rassie Rasmus is talking about doing it for the earthquakes. It's all the sort of different motivators. But at the end of the day, I think I mean, we've asked this question to Eddie. The question's been asked to Michael Cheika. The question's been asked to Ian Foster. Everybody's sort of saying, how good are the Springboks? And all the coaches are very quick to say, listen, they're the world champs for a reason. They might not have had the best couple of results in the last sort of 18 months, but they're a quality side. What do you think is the sort of the mental thing? Is it the case that we do thrive with that sort of underdog tag, or do you think it's time for us to start really owning the fact that we're going as world champions, we're going as British and Irish Lions series winners, and there's no reason we shouldn't be considered within the top at least 4, if not top sort of 2 contenders for the World Cup?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, Steve. I think, there's a fine line between being humble and then potentially cocky or arrogant. And the underdog narrative allows us just to maybe play a bit safe. We don't want to go in there swinging things around, this, that, the next. And then if we lose, it's quite embarrassing. So I do wonder how much of it might be just playing a bit safe about like, hey, we are the underdogs. And if we lose, we can just say, well, we said we were the underdogs. So, but look, I don't know. I think when you get to that level, and as you said, we've got the credentials to back us. We are defending world champs. We have the British and Irish Lions series in our pockets. You mentioned about not having the greatest form over the last couple of months. I'm quite okay with that. We don't need to have our greatest form over the last couple of months. Now we need to start hitting our stride. We always seem to forget that you don't want to start peaking a couple of months too early and then be on the tail end of the World Cup. So I'm quite excited to see just how we start to fire in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think that idea of peaking too early is what I think a lot of people are trying to say about Ireland, to try and sort of write them off. I don't think I think a lot of that's a coping mechanism, because I think a lot of people aren't ready to accept that Ireland and France are like a different level to what we've seen them in the past. So I think a lot of people do like to sort of write them off and say, oh no, they peaked too early. But the Boks do tend to come in often not nearly as favourites, and often also. It's a bit of a sort of an inferiority complex, because a lot of times people sort of create excuses to why we did win. There was the whole poisoning of the All Blacks thing in '95, and 2019 England played their final in the semi-finals. That's our issue and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of thing. But let's talk about the team, and we're going to look at the team. There is the team, in case anybody watching has not seen it. Some interesting things here to pick apart. Wes, I'm going to throw it straight back to you first. That front row is probably our 3 best front personnel in each position. I think Kitsov's probably our best Lucian, Malcolm Marx is our best hooker, Frans Behoeven our best tight head. But it's not a combination we often see, because we often see Kitsov and Marx coming off the bench, and even recently Kitsov's been starting. So it's been a long time since we've seen this particular combination start or play together. But our three best front rowers, is this our best front row?
Yeah, as you said, from an individual personnel and a performance point of view, yes. I think we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks, Malcolm Marx clearly being in better form than Bongi, and so he deserves that starting position. In terms of, is it our best, front 3? As you said, that combination, we've tried it. I don't know about tested it. So I'm really, really excited to see this, give this combination another go, see how they click together, how do they scrum together. As Reece said, this is going to be our last opportunity in a comfort zone. We're at home, Ellis Park. It's that safe, space, if you can call it that. And if they can click here, then they can have the confidence to go and say, actually, we do work well together. Us 3 starting. Let's take this forward.
Yeah, fair enough. I think a lot of this, it's been a bit of a fact-finding mission since that injury to Oxford Chair. I think that we planned for a lot of different things. I don't think we had really planned for that injury, because all of a sudden we've had to start seeing Kitsov probably more than they would have liked to, and that's now maybe potentially not had the combos they'd like to and stuff like that. So it's been interesting to sort of see how things have slightly changed. I'll move into the bench a bit later. That second row, I think, is pretty solid. I don't think. I think Marvin Ory. A lot of people are sort of saying that Marvin Ory might not make the 2020 the 33 man squad for the World Cup. I personally think he's already booked a spot. So Ruse, maybe towards you that sort of lock pairing. I mean, Marvin Ory, do you think that he's already going? Do you think he's got a point to prove this weekend? And for Eben Etzebeth, it's a second game back from injury, maybe less of an emotional sort of game than 2 weeks ago. Not captaining as well, so hopefully also an opportunity for him to sort of start getting his battle back into his best form.
I want to say that Marvin Ory, I don't want to single him out as a player who's sort of on the fringes of not making the squad. But I think there are one or two players, in my opinion, that definitely have to have a big game. And if we look at the lock combinations that we have, there are quite a few players that are putting their hand up. If we look at RG Snyman on the bench now, it will be interesting to see in that sort of position of the Rugby Championship now, Marvin Ory, can he deliver at the bigger stage? So I know the emphasis might not be on actually winning it, although the championship is still in the balance pending Australia's result. In a position where he has to perform and the public opinion, just for example, says that he has to perform, can he stand up? I think that's more along the lines of what I want to say. But yeah, he's not the only player, so it'll be hard to just single him out. But yeah.
Yep, fair enough. And then I think something that's causing a lot of debate at the moment is this back three. Now, Reece, I'm going to throw this to you before we start picking apart the back line. Marco Verstappen was a player who was quite divided a bit of opinion if you go back about a month. I think he was a player that a lot of people were saying didn't have his best season for the Bulls. It's been a while since he's played for the Box, for example, through injury. Then had a very good game against Australia. All of a sudden, he's, our answer to everything. Should have started against New Zealand, apparently. Everybody sort of, demanding more inclusion. Now, I personally think that his inclusion to the World Cup hinges on the fitness of Siya Kolisi. I think he is our Siya Kolisi replacement. If Khaleesi's fit, I'm actually not convinced he goes. Because I think Kwagga Smith, for example, is already going. I think your Franco Masters already going. Jasper Wiese is still already going. I think there's just not enough players unless we do go use that extra... those extra two players, unless we use it for him. But from a combinations point of view, I think that for whatever reason, I think the Jasper Wiese, Franco Master, Kwagga Smith didn't quite work. I think a lot of it was the fact that a lot of those individuals, first game, getting back to it. But this is a combination that worked quite well against Australia. Do you think that this could, if Siya Kolisi, for example, doesn't make the World Cup, do you think this could be our starting Lucia combination?
I probably wouldn't go that far. I do think that Marco, and the hype train was quite real. It was very evident after the Australia game. And he did have a storm over game, and maybe people had forgotten that the quality that he actually possesses. But we've been blessed with Lucy's for a very long time. And so, a lot of the focus has not been on the mainstays. And at this point, we hadn't really had a look at Marco van Staden, and he's kind of just been grinding away in the background. I don't think he makes a starting lineup, to be very honest, if Siya is absent. I think in particular games where his sort of skill set is needed, and that strength and that physicality and the carry might be more needed, then perhaps he makes a starting lineup. But to say, if we're just going into a blanket game against a blanket team, he makes a starting lineup, I think that's maybe a bit presumptuous. But
so who would you go instead if that was the case?
Well, it's a tough question because obviously you've got Mostert, you've got Kwagga. They can play on either side. It doesn't really matter where you put them. If you were to say against this Argentina side, I would have liked to have seen Kwagga step in there. I think with Peter Stephan Dwayne on the other side, you've got more than enough beef to kind of carry him where he might fall short. But we've seen Kwagga, and I hate that guys really just kind of pull him apart and say, well, he lacks physicality. And if you've ever seen that guy and watched him week in, week out, play sevens, play now for the 15s, he does not lack physicality. Yes, he might get the odd bump against him, and that's only because he's going just as hard into the tackle as the guy in front of him. And so that collision obviously the guy's got 30 kgs on him. He's going to come off looking pretty bad. But it's a once in a blue moon occasion. It doesn't happen very often. So for me, Kwaka still would have been the starting option there. I think Marco makes a very good addition to that bomb squad sort of mentality for now. And in particular games, he's definitely earned himself a starting point. So for this game, I think it's the right call. I think he's going to fit the kind of Argentina sort of style of play. Yeah, and let's see what he can do. I mean, honestly, I think the jury's still out, and I think this is probably one of the last tests that he's going to get. I think that we might see him start maybe 1 or 2 more games before the World Cup, and he's got to perform in all of them really to earn himself that starting place.
Yeah, now a player that sort of seems to fall into the wayside is Deon Fourie, who I thought a year ago, the couple of good cameos had sort of put himself into the mix quite a bit. Wes, do you think he's kind of fallen out of favor? Do you think he's still got a chance? I mean, for example, I titled this video "The Last Chance for some players," and I mean that's obviously to do with the World Cup with regards to a player like Marco van Staden. You know, he's got an opportunity this weekend to make a bit of a statement. But do you think Deon Fourie, the fact that we're now into our 3rd test, we still haven't seen him? Do you think it's an indication that he's sort of fallen behind the wayside and is not going, or do you think he might still be in the mix?
Yeah, if you ask me to put money on it, I'd say he's probably out. I think the fact that we haven't seen him at all, he hasn't been on the starting lineup for the last little bit, is a pretty big indicator. You know, as we said, we're blessed with loose forwards, which is fantastic. But when you lose forward, that's not that fantastic. But he's a quality player, but we've just got better. So I'm sure, you know, there's always still that chance. Never write anyone off and say never, you know, never. But yeah, Steve, if you ask me, I think he's not making it.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's the pack. It's a pretty good pack. It's a very exciting pack. I think it's a pack that can very much dominate what is a pretty good Argentina pack. I'm very excited for this loose trio battle. I think, you know, Jean-Marc Gonzalez is one of the players to watch for the World Cup from a young player point of view. We all know what Pablo Matera brings on, for example. Thomas Lamanini's been around the block for a long time. Julio Montoya's captain, fantastic. So I think I'm very excited for the individual battles. The big selections for the weekend: Grant Williams, Marty Liebach. What was your initial reaction when you saw that team?
Yeah, excited. Just so excited. I mean, I know it's not a very experienced lineup, but again, this is, you know, I've been saying these fan forums the last couple of Thursdays, like, this is not the World Cup. Let's try combinations. Let's try things. Let's see how guys play together. And I think the way, you know, how quick Grant Williams is and Marnie Starr as well, they're just going to feed off each other. So I'm really excited to see what they can bring. You know, potentially it's a shit show. Fingers crossed it's not. But I am genuinely excited. I don't think I've been this excited to see a pairing like this for a while. So I'm if I was watching the game for one reason, it's for that. But it's going to be fantastic.
Roots, are you on the Grant Williams hype train as well?
100%. I think he's proven. Obviously, everyone's spoken about his pace, his pace off the mark, his work around the ruck, is quick. But he's so much more than that, and he's matured over time. And like he said, I was listening to him as well. He's waited his chance. He's been waiting in the wings, should I say. And I think it's an opportunity now. The only thing for me, and obviously I'm excited to see him pairing up with Liebach. The only thing for me, more realistically, if we're looking towards the World Cup, if he could get Handré Pollard fit and have that sort of experience to calm that down, that excitement which he might have, the overexcitement, and in the moments where it matters, I think Handré Pollard is going to be crucial. So as much as I'm excited to see Marnie Liebach, and he's definitely our backup 10, in my opinion, I think Williams will do well, or even better, when Handré Pollard comes back, God willing, very soon.
Roots, I'd actually just love to jump into that point. I was thinking the exact same thing, is that while this is super exciting, I am a little concerned that this is the pairing that they've chosen to go with. I would have, if I was trying to make Marnie comfortable, honestly, he's very possibly going to be our front runner fly off if something happens to Handré. Surely you try to make him comfortable with who you think is going to be your starting scrum-half. Let's be honest, Grant is not going to be our starting scrum-half. I'd be very surprised if we get to World Cup and that happens. So why chuck in two guys who aren't so comfortable together, already or comfortable in their positions, chuck them on together? Surely you start to build that. Look, Marnie realistically could be starting a lot of games. Chuck him on with a Faf de Klerk or Corbus, the guys who are realistically going to be the starting scrum-halves, and just get him comfortable with a combination. That's my only concern about this pairing.
I think we need to push back. Sorry, Steve, to push back on that.
Boys.
I think if it was like our last game before the World Cup, and then we decided to do this, I'd 100% agree with you. But I think because we still have a bit of time, it's like, okay, if not now, let's just try some wild combinations, some wild pairings, and then we can see. Because as I said, maybe it falls apart, maybe it's terrible. But I 100% agree with you that, if Marnie is going to be our sort of backup fly half, and as Rui was saying, hopefully Andre's 100% all okay, but he does need to get used to Faf. So I'm with you on that. I think we do need to trial that Marnie and Faf combination, but I think this is the last opportunity potentially to sort of trial any experimental combinations and see what do we get from it.
I also think if you look at our bench, for example, and I'll put it on the screen there, whilst we have gone with a 5-3 split, I do see Marnie Liebach playing the full 80 minutes, to be honest. I'll be very surprised. I mean, maybe they might want to look at more minutes at 10 for Damian Willemse, but it's very strange to sort of go with a... Well, I suppose, yeah, I mean, even if you look at the fact that they've listed Kanya at 22 and Willemse at 23, which I'm sure was pretty disingenuous, but... Damien potentially coming on at 15, Kanya coming on at 13. I suppose the nice thing is you could literally play Grant Williams for 40 minutes, Faf de Klerk for 40 minutes, and Marnie Liebach for 80, and give himself two different halves with two different scrum halves. So there is that option, and I'll be very interested to see, based on what Reese is saying, the fact that you do want him to, because if we're all being honest, Faf de Klerk's going to start the first game of the World Cup. I think if Jaden Hendrickson was fit and playing, he seemed to be the only one that the Boks were willing to start ahead of Faf de Klerk with regards to how the Bok game plan works. He hasn't played at all. In fact, I do wonder if he might actually make it, given the fact that he just hasn't played as yet. I'm sure he'll play next weekend, but that's also an interesting one. Before we go to the back three, because I think that the only thing we can really do is wax lyrical about the back three. The centre pairing, Damon Delendi, Jesse Creel. I think everybody's having a bit of a meltdown about the no Andreas Taysen. I do think Andreas Taysen plays the full 80 next weekend in Argentina, so I don't think it really matters. I think Damon Delendi also needs the game time. JC Creel, which none of them actually mentioned, actually was still serving a red card ban, which is why he wasn't available for Australia and New Zealand. So it sounds like he would have played against Australia. But Rudes, I mean, a lot of people don't like Jesse Creel. He's subject to a lot of abuse. We spoke a little bit about last week. But he is the only other option we have at 13. He will be going to the World Cup. That's not even an option. I mean, sometimes Delendi has played at 13, but he's really struggled. So, given the fact that Jesse Creel is our number 2 13, it's probably just a no-brainer to start getting him some game time, isn't it?
100%. So my opinion, just to touch on the last point about the fly-offs and the bench with Damian Willemse, it'll be interesting to see where the Springboks actually settle with him as an impact player, because if he's also going to be considered at 10, for example, I was listening to Jacques Nienaber throwing around the concept of if we have problems at 10, Willie Leroux is going to come in at 10. So just to close off on that point, I think we need to really settle at the 10 position so that our outside backs can be more comfortable. And again, maybe a Jesse Creel, playing next to a Pollard and a Delende in one of the games against Romania, whoever. That might do him good. But for the sake of this game, I think he's got a lot to prove, because he has been riding the wave, and I'm not singling him out, as I mentioned with Marvin Ory. But in my opinion, he's the other player that, in the public opinion, needs to make an attempt to show them why he warrants that place. It concerns me a little bit in a humorous way how you say he's definitely going. I think he should remove that notion and just get on with a good performance.
Yeah, no, look, I think he knows more than anyone that he is under a lot of pressure and a lot of public scrutiny. I just think at this stage, we if you look at a second choice 13, there's no other real sort of candidates except for moving a Dale Lindy out of position to outside 13. Some people call it Kane Moody's never played a professional minute at 13. So I think
Well,
that
why not Damien at 13? He's done it before.
Dale Lindy.
Yeah, no. Sorry, Philip said. Truly, I really think, honestly, I really think that that should have been a call a long time ago. I mean, I don't know why.
Reza, just to jump in, it's like with Jesse Creel as well. We need, if we've got the exciting backs that we have now coming through, we need the ability to distribute the ball to them. And sometimes, and I'm not again judging his overall game because he's strong, he's fit, he's been part of the system, but the distribution now, we need somebody that can get the ball out wide. What do you guys think?
Well, look, I think he did show some nice handling last year against Argentina. In fact, down in that one try. So it is a point that he gets a lot of criticism for. I'm very interested to see how we play this weekend. I think it's a backline. It's a team that's set up to go wide quite quickly. It's a team that is set up to get our back three firing, and we can now touch on our back three. That back three it's disgusting back three. It's Cheslin Colby, who's one of the most destructive players with ball in hand in the world. Willie Leroux looks to be rolling back the years at the moment, and just conducting everything. And then Curtly Orenser is one of the informed wings in World Rugby right now, and it's got one of the most devastating try scoring records probably ever for a man who's played about 8 tests. So it's an unreal back three. But also at the same time, how important is it, maybe for Delendi and Jesse Creel, who are quite direct players, to know when to go wide and not to just, we've got Curtly Orenser out there, therefore he needs to get the ball as quickly as possible and let him cook, as everybody would say. How do we find that balance of playing to the physicality of a Delendi and a Jesse Creel, and then as well as getting our back three involved?
I mean, this is where sort of good structures, good systems, good coaching comes in, because as you said, like you look at that back three and you think, right, the game plan is definitely going to be get it out wide as quick as possible. So what is the defense going to do if they cotton onto that? Well, they might start to shift a bit soon. They might turn their hips and start to go that way. And then, Creel and Dealende should be frothing at the mouth and identifying that turned hip and saying, well, we're big enough. You've got your hips turned. We're running straight through you. So then the defense might go, oh, crap, okay, so we need to actually shore up and we might need to double team these two oaks. And then the defense tightens. And then you have a dummy ball and the ball goes then out wide and you got Aronson. Just how do you defend it? So, yeah, we've got the right players and it's an awesome combination to have that physicality in the center and the deadliness on the wings. But it's about managing that. So about smart play, the first couple of phases, what moves do we pull? How do we make the defense react? And then in that Oz game, I think one of the things I was most impressed about with the Boks was our ability to adapt. We saw what they were doing. We identified weak spots. We identified strong spots, and we adapted, and we actually crushed them. And we need to see that Springbok side again this week, looking to adapt to that and picking out the strong points. Okay, they're bunched here wide. Okay, they're spread straight up. We've got the personnel.
Yeah, I like that. I think that players like ability Remindie, like Art Williams, that's where they're really going to be tested in terms of being able to identify when it's on, when it's not on, and it's a nice test for all of them. I think it's I'm not surprised they're going with Billy Leroux, given the fact they've gone with Grant Williams, Monty Buck. A lot of people are saying that Williamson needs minutes at 15, and I agree. I think he'll start against Argentina next week. But I think given the fact that in terms of your big decision makers, bar Damien Delendi, they're very inexperienced, having Billy Leroux in the team is probably a very nice sort of calming head. Let's look at that bench, and it's a 5-3 split. I don't think it was going to be a 5-3 split. I think this is a Lekanya Amni's game time 5-3 split. Do you agree? And I mean, the players on the bench are mostly, I think, all pretty much guaranteed to go to the World Cup. But good to see Trevor back.
Yeah, and I know you've been calling for Trevor for a while now. So that wish received over there, and we were all a bit concerned that he had been, while he was out of the picture a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see that front row replacement come on sort of the 50-minute mark. Give a full half an hour to the boys at the back there, and that's kind of been the modus operandi for a while now. So, Ocker Scaven, again, we all know what he can do. He needs minutes as well. Let's make no doubt about it. He needs to be tested. His bones need to be tried. And against a hard Argentina side, it's probably the test that he kind of needs. And Quacker Smith, of course, the impact player, he's probably the one who's not so much the concern there. We all know what he can do. He's there to kind of fill a space and be the utility that they need. Fluff as well, yeah. I would have actually liked to see if they were going to start with Fluff, I would have liked to see one of the other scrummies on the back there. I would have liked to see Kubis maybe. And Okanyo, as we said, needs some game time, and Damien is also needs some game time. One because Lucario looks a bit unfit, and Damien is just not quite hit his straps yet, and so he needs that time on there. I'm not going to say it's our strongest bench ever. I don't think that's the truth. I think that for once we kind of like, oh no, it could possibly be better, which is weird to say because a lot of those guys are starting players, but they're on the bench just simply because they need the time, as we said. If I could quickly run back to the back three chat, wouldn't be surprised if you see Chesy stick to his wing, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see Orange coming off the shoulders of JC and Damien quite a lot. I think that's kind of his sort of sweet spot. He loves those little inside plays and that kind of thing. And so with the hands, JC does display some decent hands at times. As Damien, if they can simply just turn, as we were saying, turn the mindset of the Argentinians to, okay, they're not actually putting it out wide, and just draw them in, suck them into that game plan of these two are going to run at us for 20, 30 minutes, and then earn the space for your guys out wide, because we've seen it before. As much as Chesy can wriggle out of anything, you can't help it if you've shoveled it onto him so quickly that he's really got 4 guys on him that have shifted across. By the time he gets it and then he's fighting to get back in field, you want them to have the space, just like the New Zealanders did against us, actually. We rushed up on them. They earned the space to go out wide. And then they just simply scored in the corner, and it was just too much for us to handle. Will Jordan had so much space to work with. Shannon Frizzola even was on the wing. Earn that space, and then we can start looking at lighting up our scrum cap boys.
Oh, there we go. The scrum cap's great. There's a lot being talked about that. Right, let's have a look at exactly what's in front of us, or rather in front of the box. That is the Argentine 23. With a minor spelling mistake, which we will amend. But yeah, so there are a couple of changes to the side. The big ones are a change in Scrum-half. Lotoro Bazanvela is getting an opportunity. Bertrand has been dropped down to the bench. Santiago Chocobaras gets his first outing in the centres there. Juan Imhoff is back from holiday, as is Jean-Cruz Malia. So a couple of big players coming back for Argentina. Michael Cheika spoke about the fact that they needed a bit of a holiday, and he was forcing them to go out and have that holiday and to rest, so they are fully prepared and fully ready. So I think a lot of people haven't given enough credit to the fact that Argentina have been playing with a lot of big absentees. I think if you look at their best starting lineup, I think still a lot of players who are coming back. I mean, even if you look at the bench, for example, Thomas Albanor's making his return. That's a big player for them to have back. So it's they're sort of slowly getting everybody back and getting closer to a full strength side. But really, you're looking at the Argentinian side. What areas should the box be concerned of?
I think Argentina always come to play with intensity. If you just look at their national anthems when they sing, I think for them, obviously they're also preparing for the World Cup, but I think every game is just that little percentage more important to them to prove to the world that they are indeed a tier 1 nation. So I think for the Springboks, the basics of the set pieces, when it comes to the scrums, Argentinians love to scrum and they get up in your face. So for that sake, we also don't want to get sucked into off the ball things, because Argentina are also prone to that sort of thing, especially when the game tends to fall apart. So it also depends on how the game plays out. But I think for South Africa, they have the firepower to control Argentina. But I think Argentina are definitely coming to spoil. And for me, also, again, high alert, because any injury now is very costly for us to the World Cup. So Argentina coming to play, but South Africa definitely can control it. They just need to show up and put them in their place as it is.
Yeah, and Wes, yeah, I said always sort of very, very physical. That's, I mean, we all know that they love to try and go out there and provide that physical challenge. But for example, the rise of Santiago Carreras at fly half, who's not a he's a very atypical fly half. I think you can almost sort of say very much likes to play off the cup. They like to kick a lot, but a lot of very different types of kicks, little chips over, little cross kicks. Jean-Cruz Malio as well, very attacking natured. This backline is a backline that can be quite a handful to defend. Yeah, and Michael Checker today in the press conference alluded to the fact that they've been working on their attacking shapes. They did score quite a few tries against us last year. So how much do you think this is going to be a test for our defense? Not even just so much for physicality, but from the way they play, the patterns they play, and some of the players they have who have genuine X factor.
Yeah, no, they as Rudy said, they're coming to play, they're coming to win. They believe they can win, and I think if they get under our skin and start to give us a bit of trouble, they're going to feed off that, right? They're a very emotive side, passionate side. They build up that momentum. So I think for our defense, what I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I hope they kick. I hope they kick a lot because in that New Zealand game we were left wanting under the high ball. Oaks weren't in the right positions. We just didn't look confident, and so I'm really hoping that they can actually prove to us and say, no, this is something we've worked on, we've stamped it out, check at us. So I'd be looking forward to those kicks, but I think the boys need to be awake. Again, as you said, Creel gets a lot of flack for being selected, but he is supposedly our, one of the stronger 13s on defense. He's a big body, he's strong, he's physical, and let's see him put in that work this week. He also needs to be quick as well with those creative Argentinian players, the fast wingers. So yeah, I think if Creel wants to sort of not shut up the haters, but just give evidence to the contrary and stamp a reason why he should be there. This is I think his game to sort of make that point.
Yeah, I think 100% agree. And yeah, I just think it's going to be a nice. I think this Argentina side is a good side. I think they've progressed a lot in the last two games, and I think that they're trying to get away from that sort of mentality and that kind of stigma of the fact that they're not consistent, which Michael Checker alluded to. The fact that they do tend to, beat the All Blacks, lose to an Italy type thing in the next week. They kind of always had that potential to go from 0 to 100 and back to 0 very quickly. I do think the consistency is what's stopping them from being a truly top side, because we all know that on their day they've beaten the All Blacks like twice or 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years. They've beaten us quite a few times. So they've got results that sort of back up their prowess and their ability. But Riza, I mean, how do you get to that sort of balance, right, of understanding and being very happy to admit that they are a top side, and yet if we are to win the World Cup, we have to have the mentality of it doesn't actually matter. They can have the best game of their year, the best game of the last 2-3 years. These are games we have to win. You can't afford to be losing at Ellis Park. It's Sharkino's last game on home soil. It's Dwayne Vermeulen's last game on SS soil. It could be quite a few players' last sort of home game. So I suppose it's a case of it doesn't matter what they throw at us. It doesn't matter. We've got to go out and get a big result.
Yeah, what I love about these Argentina games is because they have that such big potential. The reason they lose games is because they also have a lot of holes in their game. And so for me, this is quite a technical test, as much as everyone thinks it's a physical one. The guys that go out there and beat them are the ones that are able to identify where they fall short and exploit them fully. So we understand a few things about the Argentinians. We understand that they lack discipline. We understand that they're quite easily goaded. We understand that once you are out in front of them, you generally stay in front, right? If they start slow, you start fast. That's kind of them done for the most part, except for, of course, that Australia game. But there's a lot of weaknesses in particular that need exploiting. So if we can get it right from a technical side, we have the players to carry out that mandate, that instruction from our coaching staff, then there should be a walk in the park, because Michael Checker has not had enough time, to be honest, to cover up all of the holes. They're still showing gaps. They are constantly improving. But when you go to the likes of Ireland and of France and in New Zealand at this point, even, the reason they've been so hard to beat for so long is because they did so many things well. Argentina's not there yet. So this is really a technical battle. Can we get the tactics done right? Great test for the coaching staff.
Yeah, I like that. I think, as I said, I think the big thing is we keep talking about the fact that, yeah, our ability to be able to adapt, our ability to be able to identify the opportunities and take them and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it, we're talking about the fact that certain players are under the microscope to a certain degree, and a lot of that I think comes down to, as a team, identifying where we can and can't exploit teams, and the individual standing up, and when things are getting tough, being able to stand up and be the difference, and when things are going well, being able to really sort of hit home and force the advantage. So that game will kick off at 5 o'clock on Saturday at Emirates Airline Park. The weather up here has been pretty gorgeous. I was in a t-shirt all day. It's nice and warm up here. The altitude will definitely play a part, and we get to talk about that in the build-up a lot to try and throw them off. But it should be perfect conditions for some really nice rugby. But before that, we have got a Bledisloe Cup match. And Rudy, what was your first reaction when Eddie Jones decided to reveal that Tate McDermott would partner Carter Gordon in Carter Gordon's first ever start in an Australian shirt at number 10 against the New Zealand side, who are looking back to close to their best?
Before I touch on that, I just want to say, guys, I don't want to be married to Willie Leroux, because that guy chirps everyone. I don't know if you've noticed in all the games. So a lot of guys give him grief for his play sometimes. But I think the fact that he's always in everybody's faces, it does make a difference in terms of experience. I actually think, just touching on that point, that Willie Leroux will actually play every minute of every game. So just coming back to the bench, I would love to see Damian Willems at 12. I'm just going to leave it at that. Coming to your point of the new combination for Australia, I think Eddie Jones is throwing caution to the wind now. I don't think it's much about New Zealand. Obviously, he would love to win, but I think with the new combination, it's a big risk. I think it's more for them to check their combinations in preparation for the World Cup. What can those sort of players do in the highest pressure situation? So, I mean, the All Blacks doesn't get much bigger than that. The All Blacks have named a strong side. So much like the Box with Argentina, the Box not focusing so much on Argentina, but what can the players that were selected do in high pressure situations where Argentina come at you? It's the same with Australia. I think the fly off Carter Gordon, I think he came off the bench. He debuted against us. He scored a try. There's a lot of talk of him being like a mixture between a Butch James and Stephen Larkham. So it's exciting for them. But Eddie Jones definitely taking some risks and under a little bit of pressure. But as we know with him, he's also got one or two tricks up his sleeve sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was quite amused at that analysis. Well, that the comparison between Larkham and Butch James, because I don't think too many people get compared to Butch James, unless they're a massive bulky number 10 who gets around the park and puts in massive hits. Who these days would probably spend 95% of his time in the sin bin. But where's Carter Gordon? I mean, shame. I mean, he came off the bench for his debut against South Africa when they were well beaten. He then had to play at outside centre for about 65 to 70 minutes when Nick Qatar got that injury against Argentina. So he's not had a particularly easy sort of start to Test rugby. Now he's going to be operating at 10 in front of Aaron Smith and Richie Mwanga, Geordie Barrett. I suppose one of those things, you couldn't ask for a tougher task, but if you are to make a claim and if you are to sort of announce yourself, I suppose you can't ask for much better of a stage.
No, yeah, exactly. And what's the saying? It's like tough times breed, tough people, or whatever the case is. And so that's it. The classic saying: you want to beat the best. You want to be the best. You got to beat the best. So this has got anything to prove. Now's the time to get it out there. It's not going to be easy, but I think all these guys are obviously professional athletes, and I mean we all know how competitive we get on the paddle court, with absolutely nothing at stake but pride.
No, there are beers and potential tequilas at stake, and a lot per lane for.
Brandies as well. No, you're right. Reece, didn't you double fault serve? Don't you ask Brandies? Anyway,
Wow.
So yeah, no, I think you take that competitive nature and you tenfold that. And that's what these oaks are fighting for. They don't want the easy games. They don't want the walkover. They don't want this. As you said, if he wants a stage to come out and put a stamp on it and say, this is who I am, this is how I play, well, here we go. Yeah, here's your Saturday.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I'm actually very excited to see what he does. I think I really liked what I've seen of him. I've watched a little bit of him in Super Rugby, but I think you saw. I mean, the way he scored that try and the way he came on, and especially at 13. I think if there's one thing he's not short of, it's confidence, and I reckon that's probably gone a long way towards Eddie Jones saying, well, you know what, he's looked comfortable, he's looked confident, he's wanted to try things. Might as well give him a go. What's also been quite interesting is Eddie's been very much. He's been playing the media a lot this week. He had a press conference this morning where he said that they need to grow the game of rugby. Kids are playing far too much basketball and league, and a win against the All Blacks is one of those things. He says, a win against the All Blacks is going to ruin the New Zealand economy, so maybe the Prime Minister needs to get ready for that. So he's once again sort of playing the bit of a pantomime villain. Reese, how much do you think that is a sort of a masterclass in trying to deflect attention away from a team or players who are under pressure and saying, you know what, go after me, and let my team sort of do their own thing? Because I think he's always been willing to take on the heat.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I hadn't actually realized just how much I've been focused on Eddie and not so much on the team. So, yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I look forward to hearing what Eddie has to say more than I do about, reading the numerous articles there are about the state of Australian rugby at the moment. But yeah, I mean, if you just go through the surface level of it all, it's Eddie does have a lot to be concerned about. It's great that he takes the heat off his team. That's very lucky of him. I'm sure they all appreciate it. What a good oak, all that and what blah blah black sheep. But at the end of the day, his job is there to be a coach. He's there to win games and he's there to implement a game plan. And yeah, it is early doors, of course, for his tenure. So I won't disparage his coaching too much. I will say that it's just been what a mess up for Rugby Australia, really, to be coaching at this time, even on the caliber of Eddie Jones, and expect results. It's just not going to happen. So I think I was talking to Wes earlier in the week about this, is that I think that Rugby Australia has honestly written off this World Cup by the decisions that they've made and so on. And I do think that, unfortunately for this group of players who have some really talented characters who are really in their prime, they've become collateral damage to them, and you have to feel for them. They probably won't see another World Cup, and if they do see another World Cup, they will probably not be the front runners in those teams. Think about a guy like Simon Karevi, for instance. He's honestly truly in the prime of his career. I love watching him play. I think I don't know how much more he has left in him after this. But yeah, and obviously Quaid's out after this. It's a sad state of affairs, to be very honest, and I feel for them. So yeah, Eddie, good luck. Talk all you want, but got to start showing some results.
Yeah, I think there's been a certain amount that whole thing of that. Look, Eddie Jones coming out and saying we're going to win the World Cup. That's what we're doing. We're going there to try and win it. They do have the pool, which could make it a possibility if they were to the stars were to align, they were to manage to click into gear overnight. I don't think any of us really see it happening. But it's a very big 4-year cycle for Australia because they've got the British Irish Lions coming up in a couple of years' time, and in 2027 they're hosting the World Cup. So this is a pretty important sort of 4-year cycle. So I suppose that might have been sort of the thinking, right? Well, we can have a shot at the World Cup, but also we can start building towards a British and Irish Lions series win, a 2027 World Cup win. And Eddie Jones keeps talking about the fact that it's about getting kids playing rugby. It's about sort of saving the game itself, which I think is quite a fair chat. I think they are struggling with numbers and they are struggling with the league competition. And you look at some of the squads and the fact that Eddie has been playing quite a few new players and bringing a couple of other players back and stuff. So that's all a very interesting sort of dynamic to it. But we've got 10 minutes left, and I would like to talk about Ian Foster giving us a pretty boring, straightforward. You can't even there's no controversy. It's a great 23, but it's just so It's a good team. It's like where's the
Ah.
I want a cool selection here or there, but it's just he's gone with a pretty stock standard team. He's replaced injured players, and it's a good
This man is
23.
not letting go of Bledisloe. Under his watch, he's like, no chance.
Yeah,
No way.
I'll experiment off because the nice thing I suppose though is that if they win this weekend, they retain it.
Yeah.
So you win this weekend, you're in Australia, and you then go back to New Zealand and say, right, boys, who wants a game?
I mean, it's pretty terrible for Australia, isn't it? I mean, even in a regular season, they have to beat New Zealand twice to win it. I mean, they may as well just keep it in New Zealand at this point.
Well, I think it's 22 years or something. 2002 or 2001 when Australia last had. Look, to be fair, it's like us in the Freedom Cup, but we've also got
I
the
was
same
in
issue.
grade 9 when Australia last won the Bledisloe Cup.
I don't even know if I was at school.
2002.
Yeah, I was just at school.
Yeah.
I don't think I made a tackle in my
But
career
stuff
yet.
Australia, because they've got the side of the draw where they play against Chile and San Marino and Paraguay.
No, listen, that draw is childish. In fact, Bill Beaumont actually came out this week and said that the time of the draw will change for the next World Cup because of the issues that we're having. So hopefully when we get to 2027, things will be a little bit better. But let's look at this New Zealand 23. There's not much to pick apart because there's not that many changes. But where's that Joy Rico Wani combination still getting game time? I think is quite a significant one. And Ian Foster has dared to bench Sam Whitelock. Not something that happens very often. Also, Anton Brown back in, which I love watching him play. So I think that's a very cool selection. But then a youngster in Canberra got getting a cap. Your take on a pretty, I wouldn't say predictable, but a pretty sensible 23.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Like very, very straightforward. And I think, what I would look forward to seeing is the All Blacks doing what they did to us again and just controlling the game. So taking that pace, controlling the pace of the game. They were masters of it, against us. And that's what we used to see with the All Blacks being able to, they would play their game and they would just expect everyone else to adapt to it. So, looking forward to seeing a fantastic All Black side, hopefully firing on all cylinders and really scaring those Northern Hemisphere teams because I feel like they're getting a bit cocky up there. So we just need to let them know, which is the better hemisphere.
Well, big call. Going around the figurative table here, the virtual table. Who do we think is going to win the first game of the World Cup? I'm going to throw it out now because we're talking about that. New Zealand or France? Who are we going with here, people?
Yeah, sure.
France.
There we go. So one for France. Anybody back in New Zealand to do it? I'll tell you what, I've got a sneaky suspicion that if there's one team that could just absolutely ruin the occasion for France, it's probably New Zealand.
I back the boys. I back the boys to Blackburn. I mean, they're just too good.
You know what I'm concerned about? So we've still got to play the All Blacks. I don't want to put them under the spotlight too much, but they're playing well at the moment. Psychologically, what does it mean for us if we lose the game at Twickenham against the All Blacks going into the World Cup?
I think it means that we've lost to the All Blacks twice in a month, and I don't think that's going to be too lacquer.
I think it's more important how we lose.
Yeah. Not fair. But just before we move on, I'm not going to let you get away without a prediction. Are you going France or New Zealand?
Look, I think the French in France, is massive. I mean, and we know they love to play the All Blacks because they have upset them before. However, if you ask me to put money on it, and I'm so grateful Chris isn't here, so I don't have to. I would have to back the All Blacks. I think in form, the way they played against us last week, they would have taken any team. That intensity, that precision, the clinicalness, it was fantastic. So I'm gonna go the All Blacks against France.
All right, cool. We're gonna clip that, throw it up, and in 43 days, this time we will be sitting there. Wes will be stressing over that $50 he put on New Zealand, and we'll have to wait and see what that's going to do. So we're bringing things down to a bit of a close. So I want to do a couple of quick fire predictions eventually at the end. But I want to talk a little bit about Who was I want to talk about? Rico Awani as a 13. It's a very controversial topic, and a lot of people still are very undecided. Rees, do you think that 13 is, well, first of all, I think probably everybody's kind of sort of saying that he is their best 13, but do you think he is their best 13, and is 13 where he's best at?
Wow. I'm not going to go so far as to say that I think he's the best 13, and don't ask me who is. But I will say that I think he does a pretty good job there. I can't really understand the bashing a little bit. I think he's just so good all around. He's kind of our not the same mold, but maybe like our Damian Willemse, the kind of guy who's got the build, the frame, the technique to kind of pull off anywhere. And I think that they've done the right call and settled him into a position and said to him, right, make it your own. And he's still young. I mean, he's still a lighting. He's got so much time. Like he's honestly he's going to kill it there. I can guarantee you he's going to be there for a while still. And I personally haven't seen a performance that's made me really doubt him at 13. I have seen performances that I've gone, wow, that's impressive, and yeah, he just needs a little bit of space, obviously as a born winger, he prefers it, and it's really not all that different out there at 13.
And Roots, do you tend to agree with that, or have you seen anything where you could doubt that he shouldn't be at 13?
I think he's definitely proven himself to be settled there. In terms of the outside backs, I think the All Blacks are blessed with far too much talent. Not that he can't command a position at 11, but to have someone at 11 like Mark Talaya and then Rico Ioane at 13, I think is just extra dynamic. And then you have Bowden Barrett at 15. I don't know if there's anything faster or any backline that's faster going to the World Cup than that bunch. To be honest.
Jordan, Caleb Clark. I mean, I don't think he starts if he was still a winger.
I think he does. No, I think he does. I think if he moves back to 11, I think he becomes one of the, if not the best winger in the world. I've always just thought on the wing. I think he's absolutely mental.
Sure. Interesting.
Hot take. Clip that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, maybe after Curtly Arendse, I'll give it to him, but but it's I don't know. Like I think that his try scoring record is absolutely mental. But it's an interesting one that continues to cause a lot of controversy. But the centers themselves, actually, I think a couple of years ago we would have thought that David Havili, Jack Goodhue, Antonina Brown would have been sort of the three centers, and now we've actually got a Geordie Barrett and Rico Awani's partnership. Where's Geordie Barrett?
I still thought Lomape was going to be around, but
yeah, no, fair. But the Geordie Barrett experiment at 12, seems to be working.
Not broke, don't fix it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and again, it's just so versatile, and he's so comfortable under the high ball. You can shoot it up, get him up there, catching those high balls. His distribution's fantastic. It's dangerous. It's scary, actually.
It's disturbing how fast he can adapt.
Yeah, he's just, those Barretts just disgustingly talented. Geordie, they were saying, first of all, if you've seen Bowden and Geordie play cricket, they both very good cricketers. And then apparently, whilst they were down in, I think it was in Argentina or whatever, they played a round of golf and Geordie Barrett shot like 77 apparently. So, one of those just people that just whatever he picks up, he can do. It's not fair, You should be allowed to be good at one thing. This whole being like gun at like 3 different sports is bullshit.
Where's my one thing? I'm still waiting for my one thing.
Yeah, literally, I'm trying everything. I'm trying every sport to find out what my calling is. I still haven't found it. So yeah, maybe we'll find our calling eventually. But gentlemen, that sort of brings us to a close. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do quick fire predictions, and we're going to go one game at a time. And I don't want reasoning. I don't want excuses. I want a prediction. I want a team who's going to win and by a points margin. I'm going to work my way left to right. So, and then we'll work right to left. So, Reza, you get to go away with it both times. But we'll start with the important game that is the Box versus Argentina. Where's go?
Right, so the Box win by at least 13.
By at least 13. Reza?
I'm going to go Box by 11. Actually, sorry, let me change that. Box by 17.
Box by 17, gone bigger. Then Rudes.
Box by 24.
Yeesh!
Yes.
There we go. I love it. I'm going to go box by 10. I'll be conservative. No, don't you stress. Then Argentina versus New Zealand versus Australia. Rudes, start with you.
Are we doing the heart or the head thing? Yeah.
Just whatever you want to go with. Quick fire prediction.
Okay, so my head is telling me New Zealand by 15.
New Zealand by 15. Reese.
New Zealand by 25.
Where's
I was going to say New Zealand by 20.
New Zealand by 20. Okay, I'm going to go Australia by 5. Right, boys.
Oh.
I'm trying to see if the Steve curse can be broken here, because I keep trying to call the upset and it just doesn't work. And I buckled. I wanted to say Argentina. In fact, maybe did I say Argentina were going to be Australia? I actually need to go check that, because I actually
You're a
might do.
genius.
You did.
I did.
You said, yeah.
There we go. Well, that means I'm 1 for 1, because I thought Argentina would upset New Zealand. So I'm always gonna back one upset a weekend. So that'll be my upset. It'll actually probably be Italy beating Scotland, though, to be fair. Which is a very cool game to watch. But anyway, gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. To everybody who's watching, thank you very much for jumping on. Thank you very much for all the support. As mentioned earlier, this will be up on your favorite streaming platform, so you can stream it on the way to work, and wherever. And gentlemen, I believe we'll see all 3 of you over the weekend on various fan cams, halftime shows, before shows. I will be with everybody for the watch along. Kick off at 5 o'clock, and so set your alarm, set your reminders. Go and stock up on the beer and the biltong and all the booze and stuff tomorrow. And the last things to look out for tomorrow is we will have our captain's press conference. Ray Vermeulen and Zwantile Stick, good old Stockers, one of the most entertaining people to watch press conference. So that'll be up tomorrow. And we'll also have the captain's press conference from one of the press conferences out of Australia. Lads, enjoy the evening and enjoy the preparation for the weekend. And everybody else, we will see you guys all next time.
Cheers.